Good morning, boys and girls. So yesterday we talked about natural resources. Again, please make sure the notes from yesterday are in your social studies notebooks. Today we're going to keep talking about those resources, but we're going to separate them into two different categories. So our notes for today, we are going to label them renewable or non-renewable. So with renewable and non-renewable, we're going to be talking about resources that can come back and also some resources that will never come back once they are used. So we're going to first talk about renewable resources. So please make sure you also are adding these into your notebooks as well. With renewable resources, these are resources that can be replenished, or reproduced easily. So such like sunlight, air, and wind. We use sun, air, and wind to give us power. We talked about that yesterday a little bit with like the windmills giving us that wind power to power some things. So those are renewable resources. They can be reproduced very easily. They are going to come every single day. Another thing to know about renewable resources is that these are resources that are always available. They are always here, they're always available. And then one thing else I want to make sure we add on here as well before we talk a little bit more, they are not affected by human consumption. Now, I know that's a word that some of us may not know as well. What that means is like when humans consumption, so that means when we use it, that can include using it for work purposes or also just for around the home, maybe even when we eat it. That's when we consume something. These things can come back, so agricultural crops, so like the farming that we see around us, water, forest, those are things that are renewable. We can bring them back by planting. It might take a little bit longer for them to be renewed. Like we know, like with trees, when we plant them, it's not going to grow overnight. It takes years and years and years for them to get big and strong again, but we can renew them over time. Now with non-renewable, we're going to leave a little bit of space, and then we're going to talk about non-renewable down here. These resources are very different than renewable. Non-renewable cannot be replaced by nature quickly or at all. So there are some resources that when we use them, that's it. We get to use them once and then they're gone for good. So some examples of these would be rocks and minerals. Rocks and minerals, yes, there's a ton of them out there. However, more so with the minerals, it takes a long time for those to form. So those are going to be considered our non-renewable resources. Another thing with our non-renewable, they are formed over long periods. They are formed over long periods. Once they are used, they are gone. So if we use our non-renewable resources too quickly and we use everything up, they're gone forever. We can't get them back. On the bottom, we're going to do a little bit of a chart to talk about a few renewable resources and then a few non-renewable. For right now, just to make things a little bit nicer, I'm just going to put an R for renewable, and then NR for non-renewable. If at any time, boys and girls, you need to pause the video to catch up on notes, please feel free. Okay. So again, with our renewable, what we talked about, we have the sun, we have that wind power, and then we also have our moving water. Moving water is very important to have in there. We also have our trees, grass, animals, those are all things that we can consider renewable. Again, like with the trees, it might take a little bit longer for them to get big and strong like they were before, but they can be renewed. We can bring them back. On the other side, with non-renewable, we have fossil fuels, which we don't use as much anymore. Oil, gas, coal, and then again, those rocks and minerals. Now, I know that coal is not something that we necessarily use a whole lot of nowadays, but coal was a big resource back when trains first started. They would burn the coal to help their engines go. They still use those today, but I know that's not a huge thing. But with gas, like the gas that we use to run our cars, when gas is gone, it's gone for good. It takes a long time for that to be renewed. So we need to make sure, especially with our non-renewables, that we're not abusing them, that we're taking our time with them, just so they don't go away forever, because we need renewable and non-renewable in our everyday lives. We use them every single day. All right, boys and girls, once you have these notes in your notebooks, go ahead and hop over to your classwork. You have an assignment today. There are 2 slides, so please make sure you're very careful on that. One is going to be a sorting activity, and then the other one, it has some questions that I would love for you to answer using complete 4th grade sentences. Thank you so much. Let me know if you have any questions.